First of all, thank you all for dealing with this setup here. This is unique for us, but it worked okay. Give it like a C-.
That's true. That is true.
Anybody got better than a C-?
No, they're staying quiet.
Okay. Anyway, so as you can see in that wavy thing there, I'm John Oberg. It is a real great honor to be here, and I want to say thank you to the Pittsburgh Vegan Society. Give them a round of applause. And Leila Sleiman, a very good friend of like a dozen years, for setting up this talk. Ellie, Chris, Emma, we're very grateful for you. So thank you, everybody. Round of applause. Yeah, building community, local community is so incredibly important for creating a vegan world. I think that's one of the things that are holding us back from having a vegan world, is not quite having that community. So as many strong, powerful local communities that we can have, the better. So during my presentation, feel free to take notes, whether that's taking photos of the screen, asking me for this later, or just writing things down. No problem at all. The second half of my presentation will have a little bit more than nitty-gritty, detailed info about how you can utilize social media to help animals. So, who are we and what are we doing here? You already heard a little bit about Thomas Goodman. He's the executive director from a great group called Plant Dining Partnerships. He's been doing that for almost 5 years now and been doing really great work in getting vegan options into restaurants around the country, among many other things. And then I'm John Oberg, so I'm an advisory board member for Plant Dining Partnerships, but my main bread and earth balance is basically utilizing social media to create a better world for animals. And I've been doing that professionally for about a decade now, and I've been an independent animal activist utilizing Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and more to create a better world for animals for the last 10 years. Thank you. So I want to talk to you about how I got my start in animal advocacy. So I grew up in Detroit, Michigan, and my mom was a single mother, and we were pretty poor. So one way to make ends meet is that she and I would go to a local park called Stony Creek in the mornings before school. And we would go from trash can to trash can collecting the aluminum cans that people had thrown away. And in the state of Michigan, you get 10 cents for a can. So in a good day, we get $10, $15, $20 worth of cans. And this is something that she and I did on a regular basis, and it was a really great bonding experience from a mother-child standpoint, but also the animals that were up and running around at that time during the day were deer. And deer were all throughout this park, and we really loved these deer. We formed a bond with them. And then one day we learned that these deer were going to be culled. And culled is just a fancy word for killed. Yeah. And so, unfortunately, this is going to happen, and I was horrified. I think I was like 8 or 9 at the time. And as an 8 or 9-year-old, I was upset about it, but I didn't think there was anything I could do about it. But my mom said, "We're not just going to sit back and let this happen, Johnny. Let's take action." And so she and I began. We actually made these signs together. No problem. So we made these signs together, and in these signs, one said, "Being cruel isn't cool." One said, "Stop the hunt." And we would stand by the exits of the Metro Park day in and day out, all weather conditions, and stand up for the animals. And we got local media attention. This is actually a photo of a VHS tape of my mom and I getting local news coverage back in like 1998. And so ultimately we weren't successful. These deer were culled, and they're still doing these culls to this day, which breaks my heart. But this experience, what it taught me, was that when there is something happening in the world, an injustice, you stand up against it, and there's something you can do about it. And you're not always going to be successful, but it's worth the fight. And so something else that played a big pivotal role in my upbringing was my relationship with my cat named Scoop. So Scoop was a Maine Coon-ish cat, and you can't really tell in this photo, but he only had 3 legs. So he and we shared a really special bond. When I was a kid, I was super weird. I mean, I'm still pretty weird, but I was really weird then. And I didn't hang out with my friends. What I would do is I'd hang out with Scoop, and I would make him toys. I'd make him toys out of pipe cleaners, which is just so strange. But I did it, and we shared a really special bond. And one day I was traveling. I was actually in Europe in the late 2000s, and my mom called me and was like, "I got some bad news. Scoop's been limping a lot, so I took him to the doctor, to the vet, and so, well, we don't use species as terms. We're, doctor is an animal vet. So the vet said that he had cancer in his paw, and so I was horrified, especially being thousands of miles away. And so what I decided to do was to pay like $1,000 out of my pocket to rescue Scoop's life, save Scoop's life. And they had his limb removed. I was horrified. I thought he would, be in a horrible depression. And as soon as we got out of surgery, he's just hopping around like everything is fine. And I knew that that $1,000 was the best $1,000 I'd ever spent. And so that brings me to my last pivotal story growing up, when I was also traveling in Europe, and I was on a really tight shoestring budget. And I was in the country of Finland, and I was in Helsinki in an open air market, and I was walking around, and I come across this guy who was selling prepared reindeer meat, okay, like reindeer sausages. And granted, keep in mind, I loved animals. All my life, I really tried to fight for the animals, but I had not yet made the connection between the animals I ate and the animals I loved. And so, anyway, talking to this guy, he's like, "Hey, I know you're on a shoestring budget, so when you come back, or if you want to come back at 5 o'clock when I'm shutting down, I'll give you whatever's left over." And I was like, "Okay, I'll do that." So I go back at 5 o'clock, and he pulls out a garbage bag, like a clear plastic garbage bag, and he just starts piling them in there. And so he literally gives me like a 15, 20-pound bag of reindeer meat that I throw over my shoulder. And we just keep talking, and he's like, "Hey, I'm going to the library, do you want to join me?" And I was like, "I got nothing else to do," so I walk with him to the library. While we're walking there, we're conversing, and we're talking about activism. He's really involved with activism. And then I decided to take the opportunity to tell him, I am also interested in becoming an activist. And he said, "What kind of activist do you want to be, John?" And I said, "I want to be an animal activist." And he looks at me, and he says, "John, if you want to be an animal activist, you should probably think twice about eating 20 pounds of reindeer meat over your shoulder." And I had never once in my life made the connection between the animals I ate and the animals I loved. And so it was upon that moment when I realized that whether it's deer in a park, or a cat that you're rescuing with surgery, or a reindeer off in some reindeer farm hundreds or thousands of miles away, all animals are deserving of our compassion and our consideration and our respect. So shortly after watching this, after going basically vegetarian on principle, I watched this film called Earthlings. Raise your hand if you've seen Earthlings. All right, cool. About 2/3 of you, so about 2/3 of you are haunted. Great. They call that movie The Vegan Maker, and they call it that for a good reason. So if you haven't watched it, and you're in this room and you're vegan, don't watch it, okay? It's got really horrifying footage about the ways in which we exploit animals. And I learned two big things in this film. I learned that, one, farm animals don't live good lives with one bad day. They live lives of misery from birth to death. And I also learned that it's not just animals who are raised for meat. It is also animals that are raised for eggs, for dairy, and so on. And we exploit these animals just some of the worst ways possible. And so this was kind of the final nail in the coffin for me to go vegan. And so it really led me to ask the question, what is the difference? What is the difference between a pig on a slaughterhouse-bound truck or a dog sticking their head out of the window of a car on the way to a park? And so it made me realize that we need to focus on farm animals and farm animal advocacy and veganism. We need the world to go vegan and at least move along that spectrum between standard American diet and veganism. And why is that? For one, the numbers. The numbers are astronomically mind-blowing, okay? 99% of animals that are killed in the United States every year are killed for food. 99%. And of that 99%, 99% of those are raised on factory farms. Even the ones that aren't on factory farms still live lives of misery. And so the numbers alone mean that we need to focus on these animals, and veganism is the best way to help these animals. And it's, of course, they are sentient. So farm animals feel pain. If you wouldn't kick a dog in the face, would you kick a pig in the face? The answer is no, but unfortunately the vast majority of people are making decisions every single day that go against the fact that farm animals are sentient. And so because they are sentient, they can feel pain, they can feel fear, they can feel emotions, they're absolutely worthy of our consideration. Of course, the intelligence as well. Pigs are the fourth most intelligent animal on the planet, smarter than dogs. An undercover investigator has told the story about how they were undercover on a pig farm and they saw a mother pig learn to open her crate with her tongue. And when she opened her crate, she didn't make a beeline towards the exit. She went to every other crate and opened each crate with her tongue. And that shows you the kind of creatures that we're dealing with. Intelligent, sentient, and absolutely deserving of our respect, our compassion, and our consideration. And so we really need to get people to move from the standard North American diet to veganism. Obviously we want everybody to be on the side of veganism, and when we can get people there, that's amazing. When we get people to go from standard American diet to meatless Mondays, that is a victory in itself. Getting as many people as possible to move as far along that spectrum as possible is a victory for animals. And so let me show you this pig I named Terry. And when I was living in Los Angeles, I was regularly attending these vigils with a group called Los Angeles Animal Save. And there was actually a slaughterhouse in downtown Los Angeles called Farmer John. And in this slaughterhouse, there would be trucks regularly coming full of dozens of pigs. And we would actually have these trucks stop outside of the slaughterhouse, and we would get video footage for 2 or 3 minutes before the truck would then enter the slaughterhouse. And so this pig here, who I named Terry, I got a 60-second video of them staring at me, eye to eye. I locked eyes with this pig for 60 seconds, and I took video of it. And so unfortunately for Terry, moments later, they entered the slaughterhouse and were never heard from him again. But fortunately for Terry, or other animals like Terry, is that I took this video and I uploaded it to Twitter. And the video has been seen 189,000 times. And so, yes, it's too late for Terry, but it's not too late for the many animals in the future who will be inspired by these, or who will be saved because of the inspirational stories like those of Terry. And so you are part of a movement like humanity has never seen before. Social media is essentially the new frontier for animal rights. And yes, social media has its downsides. I'm not saying that social media is absolutely everything for everyone. There's a lot of downsides, but the potential to create a better world by utilizing the social media platforms that you're already probably utilizing is just phenomenal. And so in my 10 years of running social media, I originally ran the social media for a group called Vegan Outreach, and then I ran the social media for a group called the Humane League, and for the last almost 5 years, I've been an independent animal activist using my own social media accounts to raise awareness about how animals are being treated. My content has been seen over 1 billion times. And so this was not done with paying for ads. I did not have a PhD in social media science. I'm not a magician. I am a regular guy who looked at how social media operates, how we operate on social media, and I adjusted my approach accordingly. And this is something that everybody can do. You don't need to reach 1 billion people to have a massive impact for animals. You can go from reaching 200 in a year to 600, and that's a triple-fold increase for your impact for animals. And when we're thinking about the efforts that we're putting forth for animals, you gotta think about the opportunity cost. Because when we choose to do one thing, we're choosing not to do something else. So for example, you may be a big vegan foodie, which is amazing. But if 100% of your vegan-related posts are about food, then that's an opportunity cost, because you're also not occasionally posting about maybe the cruelty that these animals are facing, or maybe talking about the amazing rescued pig that you met on an animal sanctuary who played a really big role in your life. And effectively communicating is the cornerstone of effective advocacy. And so if you think, if at this point you're like, social media has got some potential for animals, well, let me talk about some things that you can actually do for animals. So one of the things you can do is to share posts from others. So these are some tweets of mine in the past in which people saw them and they shared them. So others don't necessarily have to create new content. If they see content that I'm posting and they like it, they could retweet it on Twitter, they could share it on Facebook, and so on. So sharing others' posts is a really great way to utilize social media. Engaging in dialogue. So dialogue is a massive way to talk to people and to enlighten people. And obviously doing so in an effective way and not an overly aggressive way is important. This is actually the Environment Secretary for the UK who is promoting dairy milk. And so I replied to him, kind of calling him out on the irony of protecting the environment by promoting dairy milk. And my tweet ended up getting more engagement, more likes and comments than his. You can talk about your origin story. Everybody out there wants to know why you are vegan. Or even if they don't want to know, if you tell the story good enough, they'll want to know. Share the great vegan food that you're eating. So, this is especially great for the vegan foodies out there. People love to have their minds blown. Despite the fact that veganism has been around for so long and that we're getting so many new options in the restaurants, there's still a significant portion of the audience out there who believes that vegans just eat tofu and grass. And everybody here knows that that is not it. If anything, we eat a bigger variety of food and more interesting foods than we ever did previously to going vegan. Use humor. So you don't even have to be that funny of a guy or funny of a person to utilize humor. So I don't think I'm that funny, but I'll occasionally share a meme that somebody else created. And it's a really great way to connect with people in a different way. Expose cruelty. That is what I believe is to be the first and foremost opportunity to help animals, because the animals have so much working against them, and the vast majority of cruelty that's going on to animals is happening behind the closed doors of factory farms and slaughterhouses, where people are just completely unaware of what these animals are experiencing. Also, avoid the vegan bubble. So this may seem counterintuitive, but if everything on your news feeds on social media is from other vegan activists or vegan foodies, that's maybe more fun, but that's not reality. And you're going to be losing touch with reality. You're going to be losing touch with your ability to influence others. And we have to remember that vegans can't get any more vegan, okay? We need non-vegans to go vegan. And so it's really important that we are reaching the non-vegans out there. Also, work to empower and inspire your audience, not just depress them. So we've already talked a bit about lots of horrible things that animals endure, and I'm not here to repeat that over and over. But I want to say that when you are talking about that, also work to empower your audience, inspire them to be better for animals. Post a blend of different kinds of posts. So don't just always post photos. Don't just always post happy stuff. Post a blend of videos, photos, polls, links, text-only posts. Post a blend of different types of emotions for posts. So happy stuff, sad stuff, funny stuff, educational stuff, and so on. So you can talk about factory farming one day, but then talk about vegan food the next day. And when in doubt, post about piglets. People love piglets. My heart just melted looking at that. Have outside interests. So this might also seem counterintuitive, but having outside interests shows that you're a three-dimensional person who isn't just a zealot. So, unfortunately, as vegans, we have to battle a lot of stereotypes. And one of those things is that we are all just so wildly obsessed with animal rights and veganism, and that's okay. I am, but don't tell everybody that, because if you do, people are going to disconnect with you. And so talk about the other things that you're interested in, whether it's music, sports, different hobbies, and so on. And don't just speak on social media, speak effectively, because we all have key opportunities every single day to speak on the animal's behalf. And some of us do a good job and some of us do a less than stellar job, even if we mean well. And that really comes down to how we're communicating, whether or not that's effective. So I think you really have to put yourself in your audience's shoes. Don't be afraid to adopt the philosophy that less is more. As much as I would love to post regularly about animal rights and have like 5 to 10 paragraphs every single time, people are going to get annoyed. People are going to just ignore it. So sometimes less is more. This tweet with 7 words and 1 emoji got over 1 million views. Don't post too much or too infrequently. You post too much, people are going to get annoyed. You post too infrequently, they're going to forget that you exist. So try and find the middle ground there. And don't be accusatory. I mean, when is the last time you saw somebody being a jerk on social media and said, I want to be like that person? So really try to reach people where they are rather than where you want them to be. Here's some other things to consider. I don't think we have quite enough time for me to rattle through each of these, but if anybody wants me to share this presentation with you later, I would be happy to. For profile photos, I'd really recommend something professional for Twitter, something your friends and family would appreciate for Facebook, and something a little bit artsy or edgier for Instagram and TikTok. And don't put all of your vegan just eggs into one basket. And what I mean by this is don't spend all of your time, all of your capital building up your efforts on one social media platform, because if that one social media platform goes belly up or falls out of favor with the general public, you're going to have spent all of that time building that up for nothing. I mean, when is the last time anybody heard from Tom from MySpace? Now, when it comes to dealing with trolls and endless debates, it's really not worth your time. Honestly, it's just soul-sucking for one, and it's time-sucking for two. So you can reach so many more people by focusing on those who have an open heart and mind rather than spending hours or days focusing on one individual. A lot of times, we don't even believe the things that they're saying. They're just trying to get under your skin. And I also want you to realize that when you're doing animal advocacy, whether it's on social media, on the streets, or wherever you're doing advocacy, you are only going to see the tip of the iceberg. I promise you are making a difference. And so I'm going to leave you all with a quote from the late, great Maya Angelou, and that is that people will forget what you said, people will forget what you did, but people will never forget how you made them feel. And this is vital because we need to make people feel something when they see our posts on social media. And in order to feel something, that is what's going to get them to create change that helps animals.